Hey there. Normally, when you talk about leaks or desires for newcomers, some people seem to have a set list of rules in place that either automatically deconfirm a potential candidate or allow them to at least be plausible. From what I gather, these rules seem to be things like they have to be primarily from a video game, thus ruling out characters from anime or TV shows like Goku or from movies like Shrek. Outside of that, there aren't many other rules, but there are two that get tossed around quite a bit. If they're an assist trophy, they won't be a fighter, and if they're a spirit, they won't be a fighter. Now, personally, I think the assist trophy one is pretty baseless. There wouldn't really be an issue of repetition if we have Chrom as a fightable character and as a part of Robin's final smash. But this does lead me to the last one, spirits. Normally, there really wasn't anything against this. All present fighters got a fighter spirit, and all DLC had no spirits at all until their release. Oh, and quick side note, but out of all of the Earthbound spirits, Porky, a major character and boss in Smash Bros. Brawl, is not a spirit at all in this game. It's weird, right? Okay, but aside from that, until now, it seemed that if a character or series got spirits, it essentially deconfirms them as a fighter for DLC. But, unlike the assist trophy idea, this one felt a little bit more, I guess, realistic. And then we got this tweet from Brecken Matthias, and it involves the brand new Cuphead MEW costume. Cuphead isn't the first case of a brand new special high quality Mii costume that came with music, but Saiyans never got a spirit before nor after his release. Cuphead is different. Celebrating the release of his costume and song, he gets a spirit event. And honestly, it surprises me that a series like Undertale didn't get something like this too, but so it goes. But in this Cuphead fight, you'd expect to just fight Cuphead, right? Well, here's the thing. I haven't purchased the Mii costume yet, and thank goodness too, testing this would be really difficult if that weren't the case. So what happens when someone like me crosses paths with Cuphead? Well, I'm not fighting Cuphead, I'm fighting Mega Man, in a makeshift twin sort of deal that the other spirits have. Naturally, I'm going to go purchase the Mii costume and see what happens then. Those of you active in the Smash community may already know where this long introduction is leading, especially if you read the whole tweet that I highlighted earlier, but the Cuphead spirit fight changes. Now, we no longer have the faux Cuphead and Mega Man, we're fighting the, well, still faux Cuphead, but in Mii Gunner with a Cuphead costume. What this has led me, and quite a few others, to believe is that the restriction of not having a spirit before release, in terms of DLC speculation, isn't as strong anymore. As we can see, they're clearly willing to change the spirit fight based on whether or not you own DLC. Who's to say they wouldn't just do this for other spirits? Well, they could even just make a second spirit of whoever's becoming DLC. It's not like these rules are very hard. But I felt like this fact, while being interesting in itself, also allows for a bit more breathing room in terms of DLC speculation. You should comment below who you want for DLC. My top picks are probably Vati, Phoenix Wright, Porky, Steve, and Heavy. And while we're still talking about spirits, Spect Jake asks if the irreversible control spirit works against the rambling evil mushroom. Normally when the mushroom has taken proper effect, you see this big mushroom grow on top of the opponent's head. It's in this moment that their left and right controls get reversed. Note, not the up and down controls. It's not a complete mirror of their controls, just left and right. But when I have the immunity spirit, it's impossible for a mushroom to even appear on the character's head. So this is a pretty big sign that yes, the irreversible control spirit works on this item. This did lead me to ask two more things to myself. One, I was curious if the screen flip immunity spirit worked against Skull Kid. Some of his tomfooleries involve messing with the screen. To be more specific, Skull Kid will either emit a green miasma, which will make everyone invisible, or he will emit a purple miasma, which will alter the screen in one of two ways, being simply mirroring the screen, or mirroring it and turning it upside down. Now I had thought that there was a reverse controls one too, with an effect similar to the Rambling Evil Mushroom, but none of these effects were like that. Mirroring the screen is kind of different from reversing the controls, so I think that effect was just found in Smash 4. So when I got a screen flip immunity spirit and tested it out, I very frequently saw him emit a purple miasma from whenever he messes with the screen, yet nothing on the screen changes. So I can say that this also confirms that this spirit works against Skull Kid, and only one player needs to have it for it to work. Lastly, I had used the Mr. L spirit for my irreversible control support effect. I noticed that his built-in effect is lowered defense against water. What this means is that the character will take more damage against water attacks. This reminded me about how some characters take gradual damage when submerged in water. The idea of the effect is based around the same thing, too. So I wanted to see if the spirit's presence will increase the amount of gradual damage from water. Beforehand, 10 hits of the gradual damage with no spirits on would do 3.9%. But after equipping Mr. L, the damage after 10 hits is the same. so it doesn't seem that the spirit will affect the gradual water damage. Oh, and speaking of dealing more damage, Marcel Soldier had pointed out something about Bayonetta's final smash that I didn't realize. Basically, during this part of the final smash with Gamora chomping down on the opponents, you'll deal an extra 15% if you mash any attack button. Now wait, before you go to the comments, yes, I know that this is literally described in the move list thing. And for anyone familiar with the Bayonetta games themselves, or just play Smash very casually, this is probably still common sense. But I hadn't realized it because I don't play Bayonetta casually or her games, and I know plenty of others who didn't either because they also didn't play Bayonetta or play the game casually. But okay, for something a little bit more interesting that you may not have known, if you use her final smash in a team match, even with team attack off, your opponent will also be slowed down. So if you're ever in a team with Bayonetta or as Bayonetta, keep this in mind. And while we're still talking about slowing down, there's a few mechanics regarding items I'd like to go over. First off, whenever you're up against someone who's slowed down, your attacks will work against them just fine at a normal speed. However, if you ever footstool them, be it normally, or the footstool-like thing after a byless up B, you will also be slowed down in those moments. Now, if you're the one slowed down, your speed takes priority in moves. So if you grab an opponent, the throw will be slower, with the opponent stuck for the entire thing. One thing to note about this is byless up B. If you're slowed down, the first hit will pop the opponent up, but the following hits will be so slow that the opponent may be able to escape. However, they can't escape the second hit of the up B. I was curious about how this worked with Shadow, specifically when he freezes time entirely. And as it turns out, if you use up B right before that, you'll avoid the freeze. It seems the game prioritizes Byleth following through with her whip over being frozen, so they just negate the effect entirely. Byleth is actually a really good example for everything else I want to talk about, so I'll stick with her. Next, I want to talk about the bunny hood. As we all know, the bunny hood increases your base jump height, but it also increases the height of some things we might not have considered since they're slightly different from normal jumps. Those things being ledge jumps, tech jumps, and byless up B, both on an opponent and on the wall. It's also the case for moves that make you bounce after using them, like Simon Richter's down air. Lastly for this, Batcat has described to me several things regarding the ScrewAttack item. First up, ScrewAttack automatically activates after up B, whether or not you actually input jump. What you see on screen is a true combo. It doesn't work as well when the opponent starts getting spiked though. But here's what I found interesting, that Batcat mentioned. Here you see me use my double jump after up B. That also has the ScrewAttack effect. But when we jump before we up B, we see that our double jump ends up losing that ScrewAttack effect. This is something that we can easily see replicated in characters with multi-jumps. They get 2 ScrewAttack jumps, and then the rest of their jumps are normal. So I'd say that every character just gets 2 ScrewAttacks before landing on the ground, perhaps to prevent extremely broken ladder combos. But what's not broken is Little Mac. But his stage is cool. And as Scully here says, there's a neat little feature in the game that some may have missed. Here's what the normal boxing ring looks like. In the center of the mat is the Smash logo, looking all nice and pretty. This is what you're going to get by default every time. However, if you hold down the L button while selecting the stage, you'll get the version of the stage with this on the mat. And this little trick works on Battlefield and Omega versions of the stage as well. The logo in the center is changed. Now this may seem kind of familiar. That's because in Smash 4, which logo you got was random. You could force one or the other through a similar method, but if you don't do anything, it'll just pick randomly between the two. However, in this game, the default seems to always be the one with the Smash logo. What I also don't like is that holding down the L button doesn't prompt anything. I had no idea if what I was doing was right or not for a while, so just keep in mind you won't get any prompt when you hold down L, just hold down L and click the button. This type of mechanic may seem familiar, specifically regarding the Mushroom Kingdom 1-2. The normal variant of the stage is a reference to the classic level 1-1 in the original Super Mario's game. However, in Brawl, where the stage was introduced, there is also the underground variant, referencing level 1-2. Much like the boxing ring in Smash 4, there was a 50-50 chance for it to be level 1-1 or level 1-2, but you could also manually manipulate what appears on your own. However, this was removed in Smash 4 and is still unfortunately absent from the game. I still lament the loss of the underground Mushroomy Kingdom, but I don't think we're ever getting it back. I actually have quite a few more stage related facts, but I intend to save them for the next episode of the series. So you should stick around for that, maybe subscribe and keep your eyes peeled? Okay, how about we take a glance at that juicy title question? That may have a handful of you confused. What do I mean? What does Mew do? Well, let's look at this from my perspective, and perhaps the perspective of many others. My first Smash game was Brawl, which I'd also argue is the most casual intensive game in the series. In this game, Mew is very rare to appear, but when it does, it'll drop a CD before leaving. A CD was always an incredibly sought after collectible for me, especially since I loved music. Every time Mew appeared, the match turned into an intense race to push past all of the CPUs and just pick up that CD. The same is true in Smash 4. Mew is rare and will drop goodies. Not always a CD, it may drop trophies or custom parts too. So when going into Smash Ultimate, it felt incredibly weird to me to find out that Mew now does nothing. Note that I had to actually try to get Mew to spawn in a real game in order to see this, since Mew would never actually do anything in training mode anyways, and, well, it actually took me no time at all. I guess I've got that hero main luck. I digress. The answer to the title question is that Mew does nothing. It's a glorified Goldeen. That's because in this game, all dropped collectibles like trophies, stickers, and CDs have been completely removed. So of course Mew wouldn't have anything left to drop. But this still used to boggle my mind. How could they take such a wondrous occasion and turn it into the equivalent of the disappointment we see when we see Goldeen? Well, as it turns out, thanks to a little read up on the Smash Wiki, this isn't a brand new thing. In fact, this is how Mew always was up until Brawl. Even in Melee, a game that did have trophies in it, dropping those was the job of Celebi, whose function has essentially just been morphed into Mew. So before Brawl, Mew was just as we see now in Ultimate, a rarity, but one with no rewards outside of knowing that something rare just happened. Personally, I don't totally mind this, but I would still much rather there be an incredibly small chance for any Pokemon to pop out as their shiny variant. But I guess I'll just take what Mew is now, and take pride in the fact that it only took me about a minute to get it to spawn in, so I'm happy to flex my luck muscles. Speaking of flexing muscles, Chris Beal mentioned something very interesting in regards to Wii Fit Trainer. Here's what their taunts normally sound like.
Let's stretch our legs.
Let's stretch our legs.
Stretch those shoulders.
Stretch those shoulders.
Let's get a good stretch.
Let's get a good stretch.
Now let's go to the settings and change the language to the Netherlands option. And let's go back and listen to their taunts again.
Let's stretch our legs.
Let's stretch our legs.
Stretch those shoulders.
Stretch those shoulders.
Let's get a good stretch.
Let's get a good stretch.
Their voices have gone from American to British. I guess they didn't just get individual voice actors for every single language option, but I am surprised that they added a British version for these instead of just keeping the American one. But in retrospect, it does kind of make sense. Just a little tidbit for those American viewers who didn't know this. Next, the Mind Manor 2 asks what happens if you stick something on Bowser Jr.'s car and use Up B. You can get Snake's C4 to stick to the clown car by attaching it from behind. And when we slow down, we can see that the C4 is now on Bowser Jr., or I guess Ludwig here, instead of the clown car. But it acts strangely, it doesn't seem to actually attach to his body. As Ludwig descends, he does flips, but the C4 doesn't mimic these flips. Instead, it acts like it's attached just in front of him. But yes, after Up B, things that were once attached to the clown car become attached to Bowser Jr. himself. Finally, for this video, I wish to correct an error of mine in my past videos. A few videos ago, I mentioned Jordwan's comment about how, with the stamina up spirit in the stamina match, that stamina boost carries over to sudden death. But in the video when I tested it, I saw that both players were at the default 1 HP when sudden death started. I saw this and I thought that was that the comment was misinformed. But I've since been corrected on my error. As it turns out, while they do start at 1 HP, the person with the stamina up spirit will get a sudden boost of HP once they're hit, instead of just instantly getting KO'd. So that was my fault for sort of jumping to the conclusion there. I didn't think that the visuals would be so misleading. With that done though, I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Your continued support on new videos and even all my past videos is just fantastic. I hope everyone keeps sticking around. I intend to milk this game dry of facts and any tidbits of information, so if you have anything interesting to say or ask, please comment down below. So, thanks again for watching, stay casual, and I'll see you later.